I wasn't expecting my ego to get wrecked by a girl in yoga pants holding a watering can. The morning sun hit the glass walls of my Miami penthouse like a spotlight on success. My success. The skyline reflected my empire, real estate towers gleaming because I made them happen. I was the name whispered in developer circles and shouted at rooftop parties, Liam Carver, the man who never sleeps alone or loses a deal. At least, that's who I was until she moved in next door. Her name was Eden. I found that out later, after she'd already humiliated me in front of a potential investor. It started 3 weeks ago, a Monday. I'd been hosting a daytime champagne meeting, my version of business with flair, on my penthouse balcony. Music, laughter, and a half-dozen models pretending to care about zoning permits. Everything was going fine until I heard a knock on the glass divider that separated my balcony from the neighboring unit. She stood there, barefoot, hair tied in a messy bun, a soft blue tank top and gray leggings, glaring at me like I'd just committed a federal offense. "Do you mind turning that down?" she said, her voice steady but sharp. "Some of us work during the day." I smiled, the kind of smile that had closed more deals than any contract lawyer. "You work from home? Must be nice. What do you do, yoga influencer? Candle business?" Her eyes didn't even flicker. "I'm a children's speech therapist. I run sessions online, so unless your music helps toddlers pronounce consonant blends, I'd appreciate some quiet." The girls laughed. I hated that they laughed because for once it wasn't at my joke, it was at me. I raised my glass. "Apologies, neighbor. Didn't realize I was ruining phonics hour." She disappeared without another word. For the next week, I pretended she didn't exist. But every morning, there she was on her balcony, watering plants, sipping green smoothies, reading some book with a pastel cover. No makeup, no noise, just serenity mocking me with its simplicity. And somehow, I couldn't stop looking. Then came the day of the accidental coffee war. I was late for a site meeting, juggling my phone, car keys, and an espresso when she stepped out of the elevator. I turned too fast. Coffee exploded across her white blouse. I froze. She didn't scream, didn't gasp, just blinked down at the brown splatter. "You're unbelievable. I can buy you a new one," I said quickly, pulling out my wallet. She crossed her arms. "You think money fixes everything, don't you? It usually helps. Not when the problem is arrogance." She brushed past me, smelling like vanilla and judgment. I watched her go, half annoyed, half intrigued. No one talked to me like that. People either flattered me or feared me. She did neither. That night, I hosted another gathering purely for distraction, I told myself. But my mind wasn't in it. Every laugh felt forced, every flirtation dull. I found myself glancing toward her balcony again. No light. Curtains drawn. The next morning, I spotted her at the mailboxes downstairs. She was trying to reach the top slot, stretching on tiptoe. I shouldn't have enjoyed watching that as much as I did. "Need help, neighbor?" She didn't look back. "I can manage," I leaned against the wall. "So, about the coffee, still waiting for your dry cleaning bill." I didn't send it. "Why not?" "Because I'd rather you learn to carry a cup like an adult," I laughed. "You really don't like me, do you?" She finally looked at me. "You don't even know me. Touché." Over the next few days, I kept running into her. The elevator, the parking garage, the hallway. Every encounter chipped a piece off my composure. One morning, I caught her struggling with a cardboard box outside her door. She was trying to shove it through the frame and failing miserably. "Move," I said, taking it from her hands. "I didn't ask for help. You needed it." I carried it inside before she could argue. The apartment was small, spotless, and smelled faintly of citrus. The opposite of my place, mine still reeked of champagne and perfume from the night before. "Thanks," she said reluctantly. "Do you ever smile? Do you ever stop talking?" I grinned. "Touché again," I left, but her face lingered in my mind the entire day. Those calm, serious eyes. Like she'd seen through all my charm and found something empty. By the weekend, I decided to host one last party. A blowout. A distraction from whatever spell she'd put on me. Music thumped, people danced, and for a few hours I felt like myself again. Until I noticed flashing red lights down on the street. Then the pounding on my door. 2 police officers stepped inside, followed by the building manager and, of course, Eden, arms crossed, watching the scene unfold. "Noise complaint," one of the officers said. "This is the third in 2 weeks," I glared at her. "You called the cops?" Her tone was ice. "You ignored every warning. Some of us actually live here, not just throw parties. Lady, I own this penthouse." "Then act like it," she snapped. The guests started whispering. Cameras out. I could feel my reputation peeling away in real time. The manager cleared his throat. "Mr. Carver, the board's discussing potential penalties for repeat disturbances. You might want to cool it." Eden turned to leave and I caught her arm, not roughly, but enough to make her stop. "You just made an enemy, sweetheart." She met my gaze without fear. "You made that yourself." The officers left. The guests scattered. By midnight, the penthouse was empty, except for me and the echoes of my own stupidity. The next morning, my lawyer called. "Liam, we've got a problem. The board's threatening to suspend your license over a zoning dispute on the new Ocean View project. You'll need a local liaison, someone to mediate with the community board. They're insisting on it." "I'll hire someone," I said. He hesitated. "Already arranged." The building recommended a resident. "Her name's Eden Brooks." I sat there, phone in hand, staring out at the city. "You're kidding." "Apparently she's on the neighborhood committee. They trust her. If you want your project approved, you'll be working with her." I leaned back, letting out a sharp laugh that didn't feel like one. The quiet neighbor. The one who'd called the cops on me. The woman who looked at me like I was some lost cause. Now she was the key to saving my next multi-million-dollar project. Perfect. When I showed up at her door later that afternoon, she looked genuinely annoyed. "What do you want?" "Partnership," I said. Her brows drew together. "Excuse me?" "The Ocean View redevelopment." "You're the liaison." "I'm the developer." "Looks like we're stuck together." She blinked, realizing it wasn't a joke. "You can't be serious. Dead serious." "Don't worry, I'll keep the music down." "Maybe." She groaned quietly, stepping aside. "Come in before my plants hear you." I entered her sunlit apartment again, the scent of lemon and coffee filling the air. Her laptop was open on the table, a notepad filled with neat handwriting beside it. Everything about her was orderly, disciplined. "A foreign concept to me," she sighed. "Fine, if we're working together, there are rules. Let me guess. No music, no flirting, and no fun?" "Exactly," I smirked. "You're going to be a nightmare." Her lips twitched, just barely, but enough to make my chest tighten. "Right back at you." For the first time in a long while, I felt something stir that had nothing to do with ego or conquest. It felt inconvenient. It felt real, and I had no idea how dangerous that was going to be. If hell had a decor style, it would look exactly like Eden's apartment. Too bright, too clean, and full of plants that judged you silently. 3 days into our forced partnership, I realized that working with her wasn't just inconvenient. It was torture by sunlight and spreadsheets. She sat at her small dining table, laptop open, hair in that same perfect messy bun, typing with the precision of a surgeon. Meanwhile, I paced. I was used to boardrooms and glass towers, not homemade granola and polite conversation. "Liam," she said without looking up, "you can't pace holes into my floor." "I think better when I move." "You think louder when you move." I stopped, leaning over her chair. "You always this charming with your business partners?" "Only the ones who call the police party crashers." Touché. Again. She was reviewing the Ocean View plans, my biggest redevelopment project yet. The community had pushed back, claiming it would destroy the local vibe. I didn't care about vibe. I cared about profit margins and skyline views. But apparently this project couldn't move forward unless the residents approved, and Eden, Ms. Quiet Neighbor, was their elected voice. "Okay," she said, sliding the tablet toward me. "Your design wipes out 3 local businesses, including a family-owned bookstore. The community won't sign off." "Bookstores don't make money," I said. "You know what does?" "Rooftop bars." Her tone sharpened. "Maybe not everything needs to make money. Some things should just matter." That hit harder than it should have. I covered it with sarcasm. "You realize I could buy that bookstore with what I tip valet attendants?" "You could," she said coolly, "but you won't. Because you're not actually heartless, just incredibly good at pretending. That was the first time I didn't have a comeback. She smiled, barely. It was disarming. The next few days blurred into a rhythm neither of us admitted we enjoyed. Mornings started with coffee meetings that turned into debates. I teased. She rolled her eyes. She lectured. I smirked. Somewhere between sarcasm and strategy, I stopped noticing the clock and maybe started noticing her. One afternoon, she invited me to a community walkthrough of the neighborhood I planned to demolish. Sunshine flooded the streets, kids played on cracked sidewalks, old men argued about baseball on stoops. Everyone knew Eden. They waved, smiled, trusted her. When she introduced me as the developer, half the faces stiffened. I felt like the villain in a children's play. Eden leaned closer, her voice low. Try not to look like you're planning their eviction. I'll do my best, I murmured. We stopped at the old bookstore she'd mentioned. The sign was faded, the shelves inside half empty, but there was something about the place. Quiet, warm, full of ghosts of stories. The owner, a gray-haired man, shook my hand. You're the real estate guy, huh? Eden says you're trying to save us. Eden looked mortified. I said we were exploring options. I cut in. Actually, she's right. I'm revising the design. The bookstore stays. She turned to me, eyes wide. You're serious? Why not? A rooftop cafe above a bookstore sounds like good press, but deep down, it wasn't about the press. It was because her face lit up, and I wanted to see it again. After that day, something shifted. She started bringing me lunch during meetings. Homemade sandwiches, always with a sarcastic note on the napkin. Try eating something that isn't liquid. I started fixing her leaky kitchen faucet without being asked. We bickered constantly, but it had softened into something playful. One morning, I caught her humming while typing. She didn't notice me watching. The sunlight hit her face just right, and I realized I'd stopped thinking about every other woman I'd ever met, which was inconvenient. Because she still thought I was a walking ego in designer shoes. Stop staring, she said suddenly. Not even looking up. Maybe stop existing so distractingly. She looked at me then, really looked, and her expression faltered. You can't flirt your way out of who you are, Liam. Maybe not. But I can try to be better. Her breath hitched. Better for what? Better for someone who thinks I can be. That was the first honest thing I'd said in years. And it scared me senseless. She changed the subject fast, diving back into zoning codes like nothing had happened. But the air had changed. There was tension now, sweet, unbearable tension. Over the next week, we visited more sites together. Every time I caught her glancing at me when she thought I wasn't looking. Every time I looked away before it could mean anything, until the day we went to the construction lot near the coast. She was walking the perimeter, clipboard in hand, the breeze catching her hair. This could actually be beautiful, she said softly. If you build it right, I stepped closer. Define right. Something that makes people feel they still belong. She turned then, and we were too close. Her voice dropped. You ever get tired of pretending nothing gets to you? I wanted to tell her everything, that the penthouse parties were just noise to drown out silence, that I hadn't slept well in months, that success without connection felt hollow. But before I could, my phone buzzed. It was an alert. My PR manager's voice blared through the speaker. Liam, TMZ just ran a story about your neighbor affair, photos of you and that girl, Eden, at the site. It's everywhere. The board's furious, Eden froze. What? I ended the call, guilt clawing at my throat. They must have followed us. It's nothing. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but anger. Nothing? My clients will see this. My boss will see this. Do you even realize what this looks like? I'll fix it. How? By buying the internet? Eden, no! She stepped back, arms folded like armor. I knew this was a mistake. You don't care who you drag down as long as you stay on top. That's not true, isn't it? Her eyes glistened, but she refused to blink. You live like everyone's disposable. Even me. She turned and walked away. I didn't stop her. Because for once, I didn't have the words. That night, I sat in my silent penthouse, staring at the empty glasses on the counter, the half-lit city outside. No music, no laughter, no one left to impress. The next morning, my lawyer called again. The board's threatening to pull Ocean View completely. You need public support, or you're finished. I knew what that meant. I needed her. But she wasn't answering my calls. By noon, I was knocking on her door. No response. I tried again. Nothing. Then the building manager approached. She left early. Said she was taking time off. I looked past him, at her locked door, the plants she'd left behind on the balcony. The silence stung worse than her words. Days passed. Reporters swarmed. Investors panicked. I was unraveling in real time, and for once, not because of bad press, but because the one person who saw through me had vanished. On the 5th day, I got an email. From her, "We'll present the Ocean View proposal tomorrow morning. I'll handle the community. You handle yourself." Short, professional, cold. The meeting was brutal. Residents filled the hall, whispering, judging. Eden sat across the table, avoiding my eyes. When it was my turn to speak, I set aside the rehearsed pitch. This project isn't just about profit. It's about people. And if we've learned anything, it's that community matters more than luxury. I glanced at her. Someone reminded me that some things should just matter. Her gaze lifted then, the smallest flicker of emotion breaking through. When the board finally approved the project, she stood to leave without a word. I followed her outside. She turned sharply. "Don't! You got what you wanted." "No," I said quietly. "What I wanted was a reason to stop being the man everyone thinks I am." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Then stop pretending and prove it." She walked away again, but this time, she didn't slam the door behind her. I stood there on the sunlit steps, the Miami heat pressing against my chest, realizing that the world had tilted. For the first time in years, I didn't want the penthouse. I didn't want the parties. I just wanted the quiet neighbor who'd made me hear the silence. I used to think silence meant failure, that if the music stopped, so would the attention, the thrill, the power. But silence, real silence, isn't empty. It's what you hear when you've lost something that actually mattered. 2 weeks had passed since the community vote. The Ocean View project had been approved, investors were celebrating, my name was cleared. Publicly, I was winning again. Privately, I was wrecked. Eden hadn't spoken to me since the meeting. Not a word, not even a text. She'd vanished back into her quiet apartment, her curtains drawn, and somehow that silence next door was louder than every rooftop party I'd ever thrown. I stopped going out. The penthouse that once buzzed with people was just echoing glass now. My reflection in the windows looked like a stranger, a man who'd built towers but couldn't fix the distance between 2 balconies. Then one morning, while reviewing design drafts, I noticed something odd. The new community center plans, the one she'd fought for, were missing her name in the credits. The architect had erased her contributions to make room for the sponsors. That did it. I grabbed my keys, drove straight to the developer's office, and tore through their boardroom like a storm. "You take her name off this project again," I said, voice steady, and Ocean View goes dark, permanently. The lead architect blinked. "You'd tank your own build over this?" "Watch me." They reinstated her credit line immediately. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. Later that day, I walked past her apartment and saw her on the balcony for the first time in weeks. She was watering her plants again, hair loose this time, sunlight glinting off her cheekbones. She glanced over and froze when she saw me. I raised my hand in a half wave. She hesitated, then turned to go inside. "Eden," I called. She paused but didn't look back. "Check the Ocean View site tomorrow," I said quietly. "You'll want to see it." She didn't answer, but the next morning she showed up. The construction crew was there, already at work. I'd ordered them to stop the build for 1 hour, to unveil something new. When she arrived, confusion flickered across her face. "What is this?" I handed her the revised blueprint. "You were right." "About everything," she unfolded it slowly. Her eyes widened as she saw the design. The new Ocean View plans included the original bookstore, the family cafe, even a small garden named Eden Park. Her voice came out shaky. What is this?" "It's the neighborhood rebuilt, not erased. You said some things should matter just because they do. So I listened." She looked up, eyes glistening. "You didn't have to." "Yes," I cut in, "I did. Because I was wrong. About success, about people, about you." The workers around us pretended not to listen, but they absolutely were. I didn't care. For once, I didn't need to be the untouchable mogul. I needed to be the man who meant what he said. She folded her arms, struggling to keep her composure. You think one good deed fixes everything? No, I said softly, but it's a start. We stood there in the sunlight, construction dust floating in the air like gold specks. Then she asked quietly, Why, Liam? Why do all this? I exhaled. Because when you stopped talking to me, I realized what silence actually sounds like. And I never want to hear it again. Her eyes softened, but she didn't move. You're good with words, you know that? Yeah, I said. But this time, I'm trying to be good with actions. The corner of her mouth lifted. Barely, but enough to make me feel like I'd just won the only deal that mattered. We walked the site together, side by side. She pointed out details, asked about timelines, made notes on her clipboard like it was just business. But her shoulder brushed mine once, lightly, and it felt like forgiveness in motion. When we reached the new garden space, she stopped. You named this after me? Technically after what you represent. But yeah. Her laughter was quiet and disbelieving. You're impossible. Persistent, I corrected. The workers started back up, and we stood aside watching them. The sound of saws and drills filled the air, rhythmic, alive. She turned to me again, serious now. You know they'll still talk about you, the Playboy mogul who fell for the quiet neighbor. Let them talk, I said. They finally got the headline right. She shook her head but didn't argue. For the next few weeks we worked together again, but this time it was different. The tension was gone, replaced with something unspoken but solid. She'd still roll her eyes when I flirted. I'd still tease her about her endless to-do lists. But under it all there was trust. One afternoon she dropped by my office with 2 coffees. Peace offering, she said, for what? For assuming you'd never change. I took the cup. For the record, I didn't change because of you. I changed because you reminded me who I used to be before I started pretending. She smiled. Small, genuine, forgiving. Then maybe you were worth saving after all. That hit deeper than I expected. Later that day, I went up to the rooftop terrace of my penthouse. The same space that used to pulse with parties now stood quiet. The view stretched over the new construction zone where the community center's foundation had begun. She joined me there, uninvited, but not unwelcome. You really stopped the parties, she said, half teasing. Yeah, guess I finally ran out of reasons to impress strangers. She leaned on the railing beside me, the wind teasing strands of her hair. So what now? Mr. Real Estate Mogul with a heart? Don't get ahead of yourself. I'm still working on the heart part, she laughed softly. The kind of laugh that doesn't demand attention. It earns it. Then she said quieter. You know, I used to think people like you never slowed down. You just consumed everything around you and moved on. I used to think people like you never took risks, I said. Turns out we were both wrong. Our eyes met. There was no tension now. No push and pull. Just understanding. I reached out, brushing my fingers against hers. Eden, I can't promise I'll always get it right. But I'm done running from quiet. She tilted her head, a slow smile forming. Then maybe you finally deserve it. We stood there in the Miami sunlight, the city alive below us. No grand declarations, no dramatic kiss, just 2 people who'd fought their way to something real. Later that week, the Ocean View groundbreaking ceremony drew a crowd. Investors, reporters, community members, all waiting for the man who once only cared about headlines to speak. I stepped up to the podium. Eden stood a few feet away watching. This project isn't mine, I said into the mic. It belongs to everyone who believed we could build something worth keeping. Especially the ones who reminded me that success means nothing if you stand in it alone. Applause rippled through the crowd. I glanced at her, and she gave the smallest nod. When it was over, I found her by the garden plot, the one named after her. You're good at this whole redemption arc thing, she teased. Only because I had an excellent antagonist, she laughed again, sunlight catching her eyes. You mean co-lead? Yeah, I said softly. Definitely co-lead. We walked through the half-built pathways, surrounded by noise and life and something that finally felt like peace. And as we reached the edge of the garden, I remembered the first thing I'd ever said about her, the line I'd thrown out half-jokingly to my friends the day she moved in. She's too quiet, I'd said. Probably boring. Now, standing beside her, I couldn't help but smile. Turns out, quiet doesn't mean boring. It means strength. It means peace. It means everything I never had the courage to want. She looked up at me then, eyebrows raised. What are you smiling about? Nothing, I said. Just thinking how loud my life used to be. She nudged my arm. And now? Now, I said. I finally like the silence. If love stories like this make your heart race, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Romance Chronicles, where every heartbeat tells a new story.